The band I got into recently, which was a real find, is a band called Easy Life. I don't know whether you would like them or not. I didn't send you any recommendations or anything. They're an English pop band, very akin in my mind to the 1975 or to 21 Pilots, both of whom I quite like.
Okay. And
I got their first album, their second album, popped up on Amazon for like £2. And I read about them, and it was a very successful album. And I was thinking, why is it only £2? Anyway, okay, I'll get it. I listened to them first, of course, and I thought, yeah, this is really good. And there's a modern style of production which is really, really amazing. And these guys do it. The 1975 do it. 21 Pilots do it. Billie Eilish and her brother Finneas do it. And I don't know what the style is called, but it's a very open style. There's not a lot of reverb involved. The instruments are all very clear, but the thing that makes it different is that there'll be spot instrumentation or spot production techniques that come in for a second or two and then go away again and are never heard again. Like, there'll be a saxophone suddenly comes in and then goes away, or there'll be a special effect making the music shift, or something comes in, then it never appears again. And all of the tracks are dotted with these little nuggets. And for someone with my kind of brain, that thrives off constant kind of re-stimulation, the music's great. The musical harmonic structures are great too. They're not the usual kind of that 4-chord trick that everybody uses. And the lyrics are kind of inventive. He does a bit. All of these bands do kind of rapping as well, which I quite like. Yeah, there's definitely a new thing, but it doesn't have a name as far as I know. But this band are one of them.
Yeah, I just sent you 2 links to, one's to music, one's to a Wikipedia page of 2 acts that fall into this, I think, a bit of what you're talking about, especially this band Mini Mansions. But this other musician, Lewis Cole. Are you familiar with Lewis Cole?
I've heard that name. I should be.
He's everywhere. So he's got a band called Knower, like Knower, Knower. Uh-huh. And a lot of the videos are like filmed in a hallway in his house. Like they have the whole band crammed into a small room. Uh-huh. He has a heavy metal duo called Clowncore, where they like record inside of an outhouse.
I know Clowncore. Yeah.
Yes. So he's the drummer from Clowncore, right?
Right. Okay.
And so he just released a new solo track with a full orchestra the other day for his new album, and he just keeps pushing himself, and his sound is very modern, and it's like he combines audiophile tendencies with saturated sounds.
Right.
Like his drums are like, he trusts his instinct, and it's funny, I was listening to an interview with him the other day, and I'm listening to him talk about how he uses ozone. He likes to use ozone 7 like I do. And,
right, okay.
And he does a lot of the same things I do for the same reasons I do them. And I was like, and it was weird. It was like nice to hear someone that I felt like I was on the finger of the pulse with him a bit. My music doesn't sound anything like his music. And his drumming is fantastic, and his arrangement's fantastic, and his attitude is just, you could tell he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's so confident in what he's doing, he's become a genius in his own rights.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to go down. I mean, modern music isn't what it used to be. Like, no one's going to go down like Paul McCartney or Lennon ever again, because no one's going to have that complete public attention, right? But I think inside the musical community, Lewis Cole is as important as Billie Eilish, or as important as 21 Pilots.
Yeah.
And he kind of fits in his own. He's like a Frank Zappa. He's a self-made man. Everything's under his control. And he's a fucking weirdo. I love him for it.
I'll definitely check him out. I think I was just looking at the Wikipedia page, and I think I have come across him before. I remember some of that, but I'll give him. I'll look at those. I'll look at those links and I'll check those out. But isn't it strange? You think you've heard everything in music. You think there's nothing, and I come across a lot of people my age or slightly younger or even older who say that, music isn't the same as it was when, and then they pick a date and 1972 was the best. And I always think, God, you can't listen to anything then. You must have stopped listening at some point, because every day I hear something new, something that's just a little progression here or a little difference there that kind of makes me it makes me hope for the future of there won't be any problem in music, going forward. There's always something new to discover, and it's great. I just love the modern music that's happening. It's just, God, some of it is so. Billie Eilish just completely blew my mind when I got her album. It was like, fuck me, she is so fucking good. This was made in a bedroom. God, it's absolutely amazing album. The first two albums are great,
Well, they break the rules and then they become the rules, which I love about it. Because like when I was going to school, taking audio production back in college, like they would tell you can't do what she does.
Exactly.
And now I bet if I went to that same school right now to the same class, they'd probably be quoting Finneas and going like, "This is how Finneas does this. That's how Finneas does that."
Exactly.
And that's why you should trust. That's why I try and trust my ear and whatnot. And that's why I not to turn this around on myself, but I'd like to think that I'm doing something that's also unique in my own style, like that. Like Death by Design is carved out its own bubble, and to me, it's not apparent to me all the time, because every time I make an album, it's so different than my last album in my mind. But then my friends hear it and go, "Oh, that just sounds like more of you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Like, there's not even a guitar in the song. They're going, "Doesn't matter. It still sounds like you."
Yeah, that's something my friend Bobby said to me. I thought, like you're saying, I thought I'd made this completely different album. And he says, but it doesn't matter what you do, it sounds like you. And I says, is that a good thing though? He says, oh yeah, because it means you're not going to alienate people who like that thing, so if either of us ever did get a big audience, then there's something there that's consistent from moment to moment. And it might be quite esoteric at points and not really apparent to us as creators, but I think there is something there. I think if I listen to all of, I think I've listened to everything you've done. If I haven't listened to everything you've done, I've listened to a lot of it. And, you've got these things that you do differently, like the Vitamin D album is the one that stands out for me as being completely different because it's all synthesizer. There's no vocals on that. I don't think there's no vocals on that album. So that would be different. But that synthesizer ethos that you discovered with such joy at that time appears in little vignettes in your work ever since. There's bits and pieces, there's either whole tracks or there's little sections of tracks where you hear that again. So you're building this empire of ideas and thematic concepts that obviously you can't help them sound like you, because you've only got you to work with, really. Well, now you've got me to a certain extent, but
which I'm enjoying.
Really, there's only you, so it's no surprise that it is consistent, even though it doesn't seem so to you, because you're thinking about it differently. But you're singing it using the same voice, you're playing it using the same hands, the same muscles, the same. Even though the thoughts are different, the expression has to be similar in some ways, because I think we all pick our ways of navigating the musical, forget about the sound, but the musical landscape. We all have patterns that we use and little tricks that we use to get from one place to the other. It doesn't matter what kind of musician you are, you would recognize that technique with a Zappa guitar solo will always sound like a Zappa guitar solo, and nobody else will sound like him, because he does that thing that he does, which is to me indescribable, but a musicologist might know. It's probably more difficult when somebody is being generic. I don't think you're being generic or I'm being generic, although obviously we draw on generic sources to inspire us, and we might say, I want that same guitar sound as Frank had on that track or whatever, then you try and go and get it, and of course it turns out completely different. So we are drawing on those sources, but it's always mediated through us, and we, for good or ill, we can't get away from that.
Yeah, and I do love doing that, and I love when I recognize it in somebody else. Like I think Lewis Cole is one of those guys, and Finneas and Billie Eilish, they've created an empire around themselves. There's going to be hundreds of imitators, forever after that. Like Radiohead suffered the same thing, right? Like, and I love Radiohead for it. Like every time Radiohead put out a new album, 20 bands come out trying to imitate it, and then they put another album, and they don't sound anything like themselves anymore, you know? And
it's funny you should mention Billie Eilish like that, because that album, the album by Easy Life, I think it's the first album, Life's a Beach. There's a girl on there that sounds exactly like Billie Eilish, down to the most detailed. If I had to stop the whole thing and look up and see if we could find out who this was, and it was not Billie Eilish, but my God, it sounds exactly like her. And that's kind of upsetting to me in a way, because it means that person hasn't found their own voice. They've only found the fact that they can imitate that. But if it had been a different era, it would have been Diana Ross that they would have been impersonating, or Christina Aguilera, or Beyonce, or whoever it was that was the voice of the day. They would be adopting that voice, but clearly not yet found their own voice, which I think is always a shame. But it's in the context of that album, it does sound like Billie Eilish, and it's perfect for the moment, you know. So whether they've said to her, "Could you do a Billie Eilish impression here? Just try that out one time, and we'll see," and it fitted perfectly. You know, the wee sort of, it's a beautiful thing that Billie Eilish does. You know, she sings. She's capable of belting. She has got a proper, you know, I don't know if it would go all the way to belting, but she's got a strong voice. But she does that whispering thing, which really a young voice is more able to do than an older voice. You know, where she can carry the pitch whilst whispering, and the vibrato falls away. Oh, it's just delicious. And that girl does, this other girl whose name I sadly can't remember at the minute. She does that. And it puts the hairs up in the back of your neck. It's like, oh my God, that's spooky. You know, I don't know what it is about it, but that the production that Finneas does, he's on his own album, and more so on the Billie Eilish albums, it's just absolutely sublime. So dry and perfect. You know, the reverb, there's almost no reverb on it at all. And he describes how they would be sitting recording, and Billie Eilish would do the same vocal line 30, 40 times to get it exactly the way she wanted. You know, and you can tell that the artistry of that album is off the scale, really.
That's nice.